Welcome to the Corona Correction series in association with Refinitiv. I'm your host, Roger Hurst. Getting hold of useful data is becoming increasingly important in a world where corporates are unable to provide future earnings visibility. And macro data has been impaired by the limitations of the surveys in which many respondents are not even at their desks. Investors are therefore turning to alternative sources of data, such as satellite imagery and web analysis, in order to fill that void. And I asked Tim Harrington, CEO of Battlefin Group, about the types of alt data that are being studied and how it is being applied to analyze the current environment.
So that can be anything from satellite imagery, geolocation, credit card data, email receipt data, web scraping, anything. When we think about alternative data, we think about how it relates to ways to get information that may not be coming directly from the company. So outside of a typical 10K, 10Q earnings report, really ways to get an alternative read on what's going on within an industry or a company, a sector, anything like that. So what we saw was demand for alternative data sets that could give a read into capacity utilization at different manufacturing facilities, different regions such as Wuhan, and just what was happening there. So we work with a company called Kumi Analytics that's on our Ensemble data platform. And what they do is they measure radiance levels, which are light levels, as well as pollution levels, to determine the amount of utilization that these factories are typically at. We can overlay satellite imagery with geolocation data to see how many people or how many cell phones are going in and out of those buildings. And it was really interesting to see because, say if utilization levels were 90% pre-crisis, they really got down to, closer to 65%. And a lot of the manufacturing started moving from the northern regions to kind of some of the southern regions. And that was kind of what we're seeing 2 or 3 months ago, where I think people are really focused now is what are those utilization levels getting back to? They're not getting back to 90, but they have started to climb in that direction. And people are then trying to extrapolate what's going to happen in Europe, what's going to happen in the US, how are those recoveries going to take place? What we're seeing now that people are most interested in is tracking the recovery. So which industries are going to spring back the fastest? Which industries are going to also take longer to recover, and what data sets specific to those industries can we provide over Ensemble? So if you were looking at a Home Depot, for example, we could put together data sets that could show you the various locations, how full the parking lots are with satellite imagery, what the foot traffic going in and out of those stores may be, or what it's starting to recover to using geolocation, using email receipt data to figure out what types of products people are buying, and then also overlaying that with sentiment data and even some of the fundamental and reference data from Refinitiv, so that we can get an idea of what were people looking for, what are the estimates, and where do we think the truth is actually going to come out at. And it's really, it means, the alternative data moniker is really, it's an alternative way to get information on these companies and these different sectors in times like this when there's not a lot of information out there. Some of the airlines are coming back and saying, how can we use this data to help us predict which types of professions are going to be traveling first? And what are some of the patterns? Are people not going to go back to Disneyland for a longer time, but they might take a beach vacation, and instead of 2 days, it might turn into 10 days because they want to get in and scrub things down, or they just feel more comfortable? Will there be more driving vacations? Are people going to, buy more cars because, if you live in New York City, you're going to probably want to drive somewhere and spend the weekend versus getting on a plane or a train. And, so a lot of our clients are coming to us now and trying to see what behavioral changes we could also see. It's a very macro-driven market, so we're seeing a lot of demand for macro-driven data sets.
It might be surprising that capacity utilization levels in China only fell to 65% from 90%. But remember, these are the findings of old data. This is not official data. So although it feels like our economies have come to a shuddering standstill, this is actually a relative experience compared to where we were in January. Investors are now looking at the US and Europe and trying to calculate how quickly businesses will be coming back online. The process is likely to be much slower in these regions than the centrally planned return to work experienced in China. US and European businesses will open, but gradually. And old data will help analyse this process during a period in which analysis of earnings reports will have little relevance until the global economy has returned to something close to normality. We'll see you later with another update.